My name is Jessica, and I never imagined I would have an experience that would change my life forever. What I am about to tell you is not a simple dream or a hallucination, but a profound revelation that crossed the border between life and death, forcing me to share a truth that changed me radically. It all started on a morning like any other. I woke up early, made my coffee, and went into my daily routine, unaware that the day would take an unexpected turn. On my way to work, with the sky covered in thick clouds and the air feeling foreboding, I was lost in my thoughts about the worries of the day. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced my chest, so intense that it paralyzed me. The air seemed to deny me any breath, my vision blurred, and time seemed to slow down, with the world around me taking on an unreal dimension. I don't remember the exact moment I lost control of the vehicle, but the sound of the tires braking and the violent impact have remained etched in my memory. Shortly after, I found myself lying on the sidewalk, with the sky above and sirens in the distance. In that confusion, while the voices and noises seemed to come from another dimension, the pain began to fade, replaced by a surreal calm. All worries and fears seemed to dissolve. It was then that I realized I was dying. I found myself floating above my body, watching in amazement as paramedics rushed around me and a woman weeping beside my now motionless body. I felt no attachment to my physical form, as if my very essence belonged to another dimension. An invisible force pushed me, not physically but spiritually, guiding me upward. I felt myself traveling toward a warm, inviting light that did not dazzle but radiated a comfort that seemed to call me home. As I approached that light, the known world faded away, giving way to a presence of love and peace. I found myself in an indefinable place, a waiting area between two worlds, where time was suspended. In that place I saw ethereal figures, souls of those who had already crossed the border, some familiar, some unknown, all emanating serenity and security, without the need for words. And it was in that silence that a radiant figure appeared, emanating an intense, loving light, Jesus. Standing before him, I couldn't move or speak, I could only watch. In a single glance, I saw my entire life, every choice, mistake, and act of kindness, exposed without judgment, only with deep understanding. Then Jesus spoke, his voice soft but powerful, saying, "You're not here by accident, Jessica." In that instant, I knew that vision was a gift, a message meant to be shared with the world. Before I could ask any more questions, Jesus took me into a dimension of vivid images. I saw a resplendent Africa, ancient cities, and powerful civilizations, populated by people with wisdom, resilience, and deep spirituality. I was shown a shocking truth about Black people. They were not weak or broken, but rather bearers of divine gifts and knowledge that many had tried to erase. The chains, ships, and suffering that had oppressed them for centuries were the result of spiritual manipulation aimed at suppressing their true identity and power. The vision became more intense, alternating scenes of oppression and pain with moments of resistance and awakening. Jesus explained that oppression was not only physical, but also spiritual, and that the truth about Black people had been deliberately hidden to maintain a control based on fear. At that moment, my heart understood that the mission entrusted to me was much bigger than me. I had to speak and spread this message so that the world could rediscover its truth and free itself from the invisible chains of oppression. I returned to reality in the hospital, surrounded by doctors, nurses, and my family. However, I could not connect with that ordinary reality. Light, colors, and sounds no longer had the same meaning after having lived that extraordinary dimension, where I had spoken with Jesus and received a revelation so powerful that it shook the foundations of history. In the days after the accident, I tried desperately to tell my family, friends, and members of my religious community about my experience. But I was met with skepticism. "Jessica, you've been in an accident, maybe it's just your brain creating these images," they would say. Yet, I knew deep down that what I had experienced was real, a divine message that needed to be conveyed. Despite the initial refusal, an inner voice urged me not to remain silent. Every time I tried to share my testimony, doubts and even attempts at censorship persisted, deleted videos, missing messages, and anonymous phone calls that frightened. But I could not give in, because the message was too important to remain hidden. Over time, my testimony began to spread online, and a viral post touched many hearts, especially among Black people who were rediscovering a part of themselves that had been suppressed for centuries. The messages of support and confessions of spiritual awakening made me realize that I was not alone. This revelation was part of a larger movement, a collective awakening that was bringing forgotten truths to light. However, there was no shortage of negative reactions. Threats began to arrive, and I soon realized that my mission had unleashed a spiritual battle against dark forces, intent on maintaining power through lies and manipulation. On several occasions my computer suddenly shut down, videos and documents were deleted, as if someone wanted to silence me. In moments of solitude, while I was looking out the window at the flickering lights of the city, I saw a shadow moving on the living room wall, as if it wanted to communicate to me, "Don't stop talking." That threatening presence made me understand that the battle for the truth had just begun, and despite the fear, I decided not to give up. I remembered the words and the loving gaze of Jesus, and I committed myself to spreading that message, because I knew that my mission was much greater than myself. During sleepless nights I prayed and sought comfort in my faith. In those moments, my mind traveled to dimensions where time stopped, and in a vision I saw a future in which a collective awakening would shake the world. Images of destroyed cities and chaos alternated with scenes of rebirth, in which people regained their dignity and spiritual power. Jesus appeared to me again, with eyes filled with pain and hope, saying, "The world must be shaken in order to be reborn. The battle for the soul of humanity has just begun, and you, Jessica, have been chosen to bring the light of truth." Those words made me realize that my experience was part of a larger divine plan, aimed at awakening consciences and liberating the oppressed. Despite threats and constant difficulties, I never stopped telling my story, convinced that the truth had to emerge, no matter the cost. As the message spread, scholars, spiritual leaders, and citizens began to recognize fragments of forgotten truth, connecting their experiences to mine and contributing to a collective awakening. Today, as I think back to that extraordinary experience, I know that the road is still long and difficult. The spiritual battle is ongoing and the world is beginning to awaken. My experience is not only the story of a passage between life and death, but an invitation to break the chains of ignorance and recognize one's own divine power. I have chosen not to remain silent, to fight to spread light and truth, so that every soul can rediscover its dignity and join the awakening that is changing the world. I ask you, are you ready to wake up? Are you willing to break the silence and acknowledge the truth that flows in your veins? The choice is in your hands. Do not let fear or denial obscure the light within you. The message I have received is too vital to be hidden, and the time has come to unite to build a future of light and truth. This is the story of an experience that transformed my life and that now becomes the battle cry of those who know that the truth can no longer remain buried. It is an invitation to rediscover one's value, to fight against the forces of darkness, and to bring out the light hidden behind the lies of history. My testimony is not only the story of a limiting moment, but the spark of a global movement that calls for justice, awakening, and the reconquest of spiritual identity. The path to spreading this message is arduous, but every act of courage, every word shared, helps break the chains of oppression. The difficulties, threats, and attempts at censorship will only strengthen my belief. The truth, once freed, will illuminate the path of those who are ready to embrace it. I conclude this story by inviting you not to remain immobile in the face of the forces that seek to maintain silence. Be the voice that breaks the darkness, the spark that ignites the collective awakening, and the courage that leads to a better future. The choice is yours. You can remain in the shadows or join the light, helping to write a new story in which every soul can finally shine.